Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome back to another edition of the Dr. James Show. I'm Dr. James Smith Jr., and I'm really looking forward to another exciting, informational, and transformational experience for you. We have, real estate royalty on the show. Before I get to Chip Roach and his daughter, Amy Roach, our guests, we're going to find out what's happening at the club. You know, the first Tuesday of every month, we check in with a member of the club. We have Jennifer Howard, who is the director of member experience. Jen, what's happening at the club in October, or just in general?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. James, for having me on here. This week at the club, we have cigar night. So we've had it in the past here, but we are bringing it back. So cigar night on Thursday night. Fingers crossed. I know last night's weather wasn't great, but Thursday is looking promising. So we'll be outside. We also have a dynamic women's series coming up in the next couple of weeks. We had our first event last week, and our next one we will have Nella Bloom with Business Foundation Law Made Simple. That is on the 21st. We also have Vines and Views coming up on the 20th. So we will be having Bordeaux, and we have a Bordeaux native coming to explain the wines to us.
Nice.
And one of our last events is one that we had last month as well, our professional headshots event. So it was definitely a big hit. We have that coming back. We're changing the time, so there will be breakfast offered. Pop in the morning, 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. Pop in, get your headshot, and then head over to work.
That event, I was there last time, and it was nonstop. The people were coming, so great event. Quick question: overall, are people coming back to the club? Is it filling up again? What's the energy? What's the spirit like these days?
Yeah, it's definitely much more energetic. Actually, our regional director, Rick Quinlan, actually was here last week, and he said that just walking up the steps, he could feel the energy coming back into the club, which is amazing. So
Beautiful.
we want to keep that going and have everyone come join us.
And finish the year strong. The holidays are coming up, so please check out the Pyramid Club. Jen, thank you so much. I'll see you down there soon.
Yes, thank you. Have a great show.
All right, thank you. Listen, I mentioned real estate royalty. We have them. Welcome to the show, Chip Roach and Amy Roach. Welcome to the Dr. James Show. Great to have you. Great to have you. Whoa, look at that. Royalty in the house. I want each one of you answer this question, or one of you. The question is, how do you become real estate royalty? How do you become? What went into that?
Ladies first.
Well, maybe it was you telling us that we were that, but I think it's 5 generations of real estate in our family and just loving what we're doing. And I think that, you know, my dad started the whole thing with just continuing the growth of the company that he was working with and owner of. And then now the new world of Compass that I'm involved in, and he finally has gotten his license over here. So it is just renewed the faith in what's going on, and that people are backing us so that we can do the best job for our clients. So still loving what I'm doing.
Still loving it. They say when you love what you do, you're not working, you don't have a job, you have a joy. Chip, how about for you? I mean, you go back to the beginning.
Well, my beginning was really starting it right out of college, working for my dad and my uncle, who were the Roach brothers. Funny name for a real estate company, but by this time, Roach has become a name that's synonymous with real estate. But I think my elevation to royalty may be a Dr. James show thing, but it was, I think lasting a long time has something to do with it. I was at a ball game the other day, and my son, who's in the real estate business on the mortgage side, has a box at the Eagles for his company. And I was feeling like the tectonic plates were shifting, because I used to have the box at the ball game
Nice.
and invite the kids to come. But I think people started thanking me. 20 people in the box. I have white hair. The guy who has, you know, all the money in the box has brown hair, and everybody was thanking me for inviting him to the box. So
Wow.
sometimes just lasting a long time does a big deal for you. So.
Well, Chip, you graduated from Notre Dame and you went into the business. Was that what you wanted to do? Did you feel the pressure, or while you were in school, you were readying yourself for this real estate journey?
I had a little trouble with school, so it took me a while to get through that. And I bombed out in the middle of my school and came back and worked in a warehouse for a while. And
Wow.
I had really no aspirations. I was kind of lost in space. Then I met my wife. We got married in 1964, and I got laid off from my job. And I said, maybe the college degree, you know, wouldn't be a bad idea here. So we went back to Indiana. He worked for Indiana Bell Telephone Company, and I, great picture. And I was a student, did a lot better with that motivation, but still had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was out there in the summer and ended up getting a job selling door to door. I had never been into anything like that. And I was really good at it, and ended up with a crew of about 7 people at the end of the summer. And I said, maybe I ought to try that real estate gig. And so I ended up in the real estate business, really almost backed into it. So,
wow.
And
your best friend, Nancy, has been with you throughout the duration of this journey.
Yeah, actually, Amy Roach is a Hoosier. She was born at South Bend Memorial Hospital in a fit of family planning gone awry.
Remember the Pyramid Club.
Amy, how about you? Did you feel the family pressure to put on your real estate gear, or is it something that you wanted to do or stumbled into?
I always wanted to be in commercial real estate. Like, that was my big thing graduating from college. I did really a lot of interviewing and saw some really great offices in the city. But everybody was like, oh, so how's your dad doing? And I was like, well, like, I really would like a job here. So it wasn't really the female role of commercial real estate when I graduated in 1988. And I ended up, I always said to people, I don't want to go into sales. I don't want people in my car with their kids and like lollipops and like, you know, getting the stuff dirty. But I did work, I was an assistant for like 20 agents. Then I worked at Trident Mortgage, and I did a bunch of different stuff in the company.
Hey, you were my assistant for a while. Don't forget that.
I was. Yes, your assistant quit, and then I popped over and did that for a little bit. But it was when the company was purchased Prudential Preferred, and I was in training at that point, training new agents. And I was like, oh God, this is going to be a problem, because Prudential has like this really nice training center and I'm going to be fired. And I was thinking, maybe I could go into sales. Maybe I'll try that. And it was one of those things where I knew I wasn't, you know, you don't get paid anything until you settle something. And I'm like, Dad, could you just, you know, help me a little bit for 6 months? And he goes, oh, it's going to be 18. Nobody makes any money the first year. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I make the decision, go through training, and then find out I'm pregnant. And I'm like, this is really going to be interesting. So my whole first year, I was like walking around, like waddling around. But it was, I mean, I loved it. I loved my people. And I think that's the big part of it, is I wasn't looking at people as a dollar sign. I was looking at them to help them. So I think, you know, I did get into a couple situations where I started looking at people like dollar signs again. And then I'm like, okay, step back, you know, you can eat hot dogs and Cheerios. You're going to be fine. So.
And you have been. What happens when the two of you get together? We have a picture that shows both of you together, but something tells me magic happens when Chip and Amy are in the same room.
we usually get in trouble. Yeah, we definitely can get in trouble and laugh really hard and cry. And I think that I was just telling my friends I was away with this weekend in Nashville, my Peloton girls, and I told them the story about how my mom just started laughing so hard and crying, and she never does that. And we were away in Ireland, and it was like one of those stories that usually you tell a story and people are just like, yeah, whatever, I don't get it. But it was one of those things that was so crazy, hilarious. So my dad and I like laugh and cry at, ads on TV, like commercials on TV. But when you get something really good and going that, but we do have fun, but I think at the same time, he has always given me the confidence. My mom's great. Like, she probably knows more about the people that I work with than I do. But she's really good at sort of being the one, like I am. I'm always the devil's advocate. And, my dad's always the one like, oh, you're doing a great job, whatever. But you don't know, it's great to have both of them because you can never get an ego.
Chip, you going to co-sign that, or you have a different side?
Yeah, no, we enjoy each other. We don't talk a ton of business. It's I grew up with my dad as my boss, and then I bought him out, and we were in partnerships together. So that's one of those joyful memories that we worked real close because the company was smaller at that time. I think when I joined it, there were 30 people there. There are now 4,000 or 5,000 people there, and but it's one of those things that you're dealing with people and you're helping people try to figure out what they're thinking. Maybe the challenge for real estate sales with buyers is trying to figure out what two people are thinking together and where they want to go, and trying to help them make those kind of decisions. So there's a lot of psychology in that, and a lot of wisdom comes from doing it over and over again. So as I learned from my dad, I was able to share things with my daughter, and my son, as I said, is in the mortgage part of the business. So that's been a fascinating thing. We started a mortgage company in the 80s in the company, and Tim joined it out of college and became quite successful. He's now with another company called Cross Country Mortgage, but doing real well. And he's into the people business. He learned how to do the mortgage origination, which is akin to the real estate sales thing. So with buyers and in real estate, he learned how to figure out what both people were thinking and bring it together and help them. So we're all in that same kind of helping mode and still learning from each other. It's watching over Amy's shoulder now is a joy because she knows how to do business the right way and really gets into people. I meet clients of hers who said, she told me not to buy that house or not to list my house, to wait a while. And it's like, oh my goodness, she's not looking at the dollars only. She's looking at what the people really need. And sometimes she knows more than they know what they need. So it's really nice to have that intergenerational feeling. I did find I grew up with my grandfather kind of in the business. He was a title guy in Upper Darby when I was a kid.
Yes.
And it turns out I found after he's dead 20 years, my father said, here's some love letters that my dad wrote to my mother years ago, and I've never read them. You take them. So I took them, and I didn't read them either. It's like, looking under somebody's covers or something. But when I did read them, I realized that one of the envelopes that was mailed to my grandmother in Camden, New Jersey from my grandfather in Philadelphia, North 22nd Street.
Yes.
It said William F. Roach Real Estate, 222 North 22nd Street. And I said, I wish my grandfather was around. I had no idea his father was a saddle maker for John Wanamaker's. That's a legendary part of our family history, but he must have been in the real estate business. This is 1911. There was no real estate licensing act in Pennsylvania. So you can't call Harrisburg and say, hey, like was this guy licensed then? Because there wasn't a license law till 1929, I think. But so that becomes part of the family lore. That's the 5-generation tagline that Amy was using at the beginning of the show. So
huge history, lore. Question in the chat room says, what 3 items of advice would you share with someone who wants to be a real estate professional and be a success in the industry? Again, what 3 items? Now we're getting the special sauce, special ingredients. You giving us your secrets here. What 3 items of advice would you share with someone who wants to be a real estate professional and be a success in the industry? Who wants to tackle that one first?
We'll do ladies first. That gets me off the hook.
Amy, I see your mind wandering. 3, I have 3,000, but give us some of your special ingredients, your special sauce.
So I think you need to be a good listener. I think that's your biggest thing. And I really do not like houses at all. Like it's funny. My husband's a photographer, so he's sort of the same way. Like he sees a house and I'm like, how was it? He's like, it's a house.
Your husband, the photographer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Once in a while, he will come home and be like, you have to see like this house. Wait till I upload this. But I think that's the other thing. I think that's the other thing is, you need to be a good listener, but it's also so much about the people and not the houses that you're looking at. And I also
when you say it's about the people, bring that home even more. He says it's about the people. What are you looking for? What are you listening for?
You're like a therapist. You're definitely like #1 therapist, but most people will say buyers are liars. So when you have your first interview with them, they'll say they want all these certain things. But every time you go into a house, like it's never a waste of time to show someone a house. Like even if they're not quite sure they want it, like you need to get in there and get more conversation with them, especially in this market. You don't have much inventory. So you're not spending a lot of time with your people. So you need to listen to them. You need to watch them walk through the house. You need to watch, the husband and wife, the partners, the kids, and sort of get a feel for what everybody's looking for. But I think listening, being able to like therapize people and also just being there to help them get their package together so that they look the best to the listing agent and the seller. And I think in this market, working with my brother Tim and his loan officers across Country Mortgage, helping people that way is huge. Like you just need to have a team around you. Compass now just purchased Common Ground. They're working with a title company, trying to bring things in home, which, everything in one place, which is what my dad always did at the other company. But it's going to be a huge thing for them to do. But that was my big thing moving to Compass. I didn't have the title company, things like that. So you need to have people that you work with, different inspectors and things like that. But it's a hard job. It's all different hours. It's not 9 to 5. I pretty much work every day. I always know what the date is, but I can't always tell you that I know what day of the week it is.
Chip, I feel like I'm talking to the wizard. So the wizard, please give us some of your special ingredients that made you the success that you've been.
Well, I think part of it is what Amy said. It's always about the people. And the question is being asked by an invisible person here. So I don't know where they are, whether they're 22 or 42, but I think finding the people in the business who are really the brightest is part of the key. If you find somebody who's a really good trainer who can explain the business and talk about the skills and point you in the direction of the people to go talk to, that person becomes the key to your career in a lot of ways. So getting the job, finding that person, and what Amy was talking about earlier, finding the right person means sometimes going out and talking to a few people whose names you've heard or the research you've done on the field. So getting into the real estate business, find somebody who's really good at it, who's got that quality of wanting to mentor and grow people as part of their career. I would say the company to be associated with really should have those services around you. It's sort of in my career building the business that's now called, it was Roach Brothers when I started, and it's now called Berkshire Hathaway. It still says Fox and Roach on the, so Amy abandoned ship and my name's still on that business. Now I abandoned ship and went to Compass myself. But that company was known around the country in the real estate brokerage business for having figured out how to bring services to the table. When you are a buyer of a house, it usually happens every decade or 2 decades. So, and it's done differently in Chicago and LA, and even like in New Jersey, in the Philadelphia market, you've got 3 different states. The customs and the laws are different. So when you're a buyer, you really need somebody, not only who is a real estate salesperson with that empathy, was the quality that Amy was talking about, that, you know, you listen to people talk and you watch their reactions, but you really need to put yourself in their shoes and have that as a quality of your sales ability. But having those other services around is a real boost, because if you have somebody in your office who's with the mortgage company and the title company and the casualty insurance, all of those things need to be done beautifully and professionally. But if you can weave them together, that's the secret. And for me as a business person, building a real estate brokerage company was treacherous in the 80s and 90s. I remember the real estate business in 1981, the interest rates went to 18% for a mortgage, a long-term mortgage. So talk about challenges. And the early 90s were another thing where people, the Gulf War started and was on television. Dr. Jim, you would remember that. It's sort of like you go home from work and you start watching a war on television. Well, that was not a time that people wanted to buy houses.
No.
We had just expanded our business, but part of my success was trying to figure out that what works for the consumer is having all those things be woven together and presented at the same place. So Compass Real Estate, which is a phenomenon that I have a difficult time understanding. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen done in my business. Now that they've got the brokerage thing kind of figured out, because they're looking for great salespeople, which is why Amy's there. But they're also starting to build this enterprise where you have other services that can be woven together right in the same place. So I would say if somebody's looking to get in the business, find the right person, but find the right company that's got training that can help you grow and weaves those other services into your world that makes it real easy for you to deliver as well.
Chip, good stuff, great stuff. And you mentioned selling during challenging times. Amy, take me back to last March, 3rd week of March, when this thing called the pandemic started trending. What was going through Amy Roach's mind as it relates to selling during challenging times?
So we were shut down, and luckily I had a pipeline of deals. So I knew that I was going to be okay. But like when we were shut down, when we were first shut down, it was like you were going to be shut down for a couple of days. And then it got to the point where Compass did, like, I have to say, Compass did, we shut down and we were told that we were not allowed to work. You weren't allowed to open houses. Like, this was a company-wide decision. And there were other people out there working. And my husband definitely takes pictures for a lot of different agents and a lot of different companies. And I said, do not share your schedule with me. Like, you're not supposed to be out there. Like, I don't want to know where you're going. Like, when they come after you, I don't want to have anything to do with your schedule. So it was really scary. He was on top of you know, you can get these loans, you can get this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? There's so many other people that need money. I don't want to take money from somebody else. But then it did start getting scary. I mean, Drew, my son Drew was still in college. He came home to finish his senior year. And, you know, it was just dealing with like the emotion of that. But then all these, my clients who had to get their houses sold, we were in the middle of inspections, other people that had to move. I did not sell a house sight unseen. That was really a little crazy, but I do have to say this market, we didn't have a ton of inventory before the pandemic. So then the pandemic on top of that just created a little craziness. But if everybody's just aware of what they're going to have to go through, just explaining the process, going over the agreement of sale before you need to write one. And a lot of my clients that settled this year, they did a handful of agreements to sale and to get a property. So
what did you learn most from this character building experience relative to building trust, the whole healthcare, protecting yourself going in? Will people let you in? What did you learn most?
I just really sprayed my hands a lot. I tried to be the one, you know, people had to get in and see houses. They were in a crunch to buy something. So I made sure that we got in because you had little time slots. I, you know, got them some comparables about the neighborhood beforehand and gave them as much information ahead of time. And I was the one that was going in, opening the doors, turning on the lights. I'm like, don't touch anything, but just walk through and try to stop thinking about the fact that you have like gloves on or masks on or whatever. Like you need to look at the house. And it was, you know, constantly like, how much more time do we have? But then once you did it a couple times, like they knew, like the husband would go and look at something that he wanted to see. The wife would go look at something else, and then you couldn't take the kids in. So there were only like 2 people at a time. So I'd always make sure that we'd get them in and out. And if the kids were there, you know, the parents could talk outside and we'd get them in. So it was definitely different, but I have to tell you, how nice was it to see a house by yourself, even if it was only 15 minutes? Because normally if there's a hot house on the market, you're walking through that house with other people. And we're still not really, we got back to that like a little bit for like maybe a week. And then we're back to, you know, maybe it's 30 minutes now. But you're not allowed in there for an hour.
No, we still have a ways to go. There's a comment in the chat room. It says, how do I get my bestie to not work when we're together? Her dedication is intense. Something
Crystal.
tells me, Amy, you know a little bit about that person.
So yeah, she's the best because she did get to hear my conversation. I had my clients on speakerphone when I was with her in Virginia Beach a while back. And I said to her, I'm like, I'm going to call them and tell them they got this house. So she heard them screaming. They couldn't believe they got the house. I really couldn't. And I said to her, they're not going to get this house. And then all of a sudden they ended up getting it. But I work all the time. I'm awful. But at the same time, it's, you know, it's the type of thing where you sort of do it and you can get rid of it. And at least you can do it from your computer. You know, people will see me. I used to sit in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot all the time. But there's certain, you can pull over if you have your computer with you. It's a lot of phone calls. But now with the way I'm not running and getting stuff signed, like my dad, I still don't know how he did this, but he was always home for dinner. And, you know, it was definitely sort of, I think, more of a 9 to 5 job, unless my mom was just like, sorry, your people have to wait. But my kids never knew anything different. And, you know, I was always the mom that I'm like, okay, let me pick up and drop off because I can do that today. I don't know if I can do that tomorrow. So I figured out how to make things work, but I know usually I do sell a house when I'm with Crystal.
Now, you said your father was always home for dinner. I think we have a picture
Oh no.
during that time. Let's take a look and see if this is one of those times where he made it home for dinner.
That's great. That's a great hair color that guy has.
Yes.
Tim Roach and his velour turban.
I'm back to wear my glasses too.
Great shot, great shot. I have a question for both of you, then we'll get back to the heart of what we were talking about. I'm going to show you a video, and I want you to tell me, would you buy property from this person? Let's take a look at this video.
One of the major joys you have coming to an island like this is just the peace and quiet that you feel coming across the bridge, knowing that you're away from all those people and the hustle and bustle of life on the mainland. You've got a smell that's in the air that is part of that peaceful feeling. And as you get here, even though there may be crowds at times, you can find peace in the house that you bought, peace with your family surrounding you, and that's what we're trying to accomplish, is surround ourselves with family and friends and kind of running an inn here on the barrier island that really brings us a lot of joy and contentment.
All right, all right. What's the answer? Are you buying property from that man?
You have some good research, people, Dr. Jim. That was a beauty.
I've never seen that.
I
That's
don't
hilarious.
remember that. That's funny. That's what, it's sort of like Hugh Merkel is the guy that asked me to do that piece. He's a guy who was working in the real estate business for a while on the barrier island that we call home in the summertime. And Hugh said, hey, look, he knew Bill Fox. So Fox and Roach is the company name. We had merged with Bill Fox's company. We're about the same age. He's a South Jersey guy. I'm a Southeastern Pennsylvania guy. So I'm learning Jersey. And Hugh Merkel approaches us because he had been the swim coach for all four of Bill Fox's kids, the Jersey Wahoos. And then he got into the real estate business down the shore. And he paid somebody a whole bunch of money to find out where the people had their first home who lived on that barrier island. I love entrepreneurial, risk taking. So he had spent some serious money. He had a map with dots on it of all the home addresses of the people who owned their second home. And he said, I want you guys, because all the dots are in Haddonfield and Morristown, New Jersey, all out the main line, Chester County. It's like we had a major market share, Fox and Lazo in South Jersey and Roach Brothers in Southeastern Pennsylvania, and all the markets that were. So we opened an office in Stone Harbor because Hugh talked us into it and made a special deal for him because of his entrepreneurial ability. He's still there. He's actually just changed to Compass Real Estate 2 years ago with help from Amy and Tim Roach, who kind of talked him through that transition. Tim has always done Hugh's mortgages down there for his clients, so they have a real good relationship. And it's just one of those stories where you bring all of the elements together. We find other entrepreneurs, help them grow, love the way they're approaching their life, and then bring resources in. In this case, it happened to be Amy and Tim who were the resources that helped Hugh make the transition to Compass, but we helped him make the transition to kind of owning his own business down there. So it's a great story, and thank you for finding that film. I got my hair color back.
Amy, you and I, we met this year. Our good friend Marcus Allen asked us to take this journey with him, and when Marcus Ballin tells you to do something, you do it. But it was based on this book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, where we got up ungodly hours in the morning to do work on ourselves. Can you tell folks, why did you get involved outside of Marcus's admonition, but why did you do that and the impact that this experience has had on you?
So I was getting up, I'm part of a 6 a.m.ers group that Sky Michaels from Compass started during COVID. And I had been doing that since I think last October. And Sky was always like, you need to come, you need to be part of this. And I'm like, I'm not getting up that early. And the more I thought about it, the dog was like starting to whine at 5:30. Brock was getting up by 6 to take him out. I'm like, you know what? I'm up anyhow. I'm one of those people that I can't fall back to sleep. So finally I'm like, okay, Sky, I'll come to the 6 a.m.ers, like seriously. But that was like life changing. And today we had our first call for October. 317 people are on that Zoom call at 6 a.m. And it's, it's the East Coast Compass. They do have a West Coast one also. But when I have always, Marcus is, I don't know. I think Marcus is like my dad, but like closer to my age. And then like so much younger than me. Like I always think I'm like 12 years old, but I watched him on his bike ride across from California. Yeah, from California to Atlantic City. And then when he does these great Facebook lives and he's like all out there, like his authentic self all the time. And he said something about the Miracle Morning. And my dad's like, hey, are you getting that book that Marcus was talking about? And I'm like, are you like trying to change your life? Like at 79? Like, yeah, I definitely am getting it. And I'm going to, be part of his group. And my dad's like, at 5 a.m., I can't do that. So I said, well, I mean, I'm already up like for 6. What's 5? And I'm like, it's free. Like it's Marcus Allen, like giving you his, like all of him and like what he thinks. And I was like, it's going to help me. But my main thing was I had lost it. I wasn't thinking of people as dollar signs, but I wasn't wasn't doing stuff for myself. And I was just so involved with every deal was, all encompassing. I was helping some other agents help navigate their deals, which I love doing because you always learn something. Sure. People are like, why do you do that? And I'm like, because you're always learning something. And I'm so much better at helping people than helping myself. Okay. Yeah. But I do.
You're the one.
I have to say that group, the first morning, getting on that call, and I said to my parents, because I did come down to the shore like the second week, and I'm like, I'm not going to tell you who these people are because I don't know who they are either. I haven't Googled them. I'm like, but they are like very important. But the Miracle Morning was stuff that I had been doing, like Lou Tice that my mom and dad had facilitated for the company years ago. Atomic Habits is a book that we read in the 6 a.m.ers, and The Go-Giver, which is a book that Marcus shared with my dad years ago, which is like so part of our family. But all of those things are part of me. And the Miracle Morning just brought them all back together, gave you a simple little savers, your little letters that you need to like cross off during the day. And I can't say that every day I get up at 5 a.m., but I'm doing the stuff for myself.
Marcus is listening.
I know he's really going to come into the chat. But I am, I'm not getting on the email right away. I'm doing the stuff for myself. And the biggest thing was the Peloton. Like I'm like a Peloton, the cult, whatever, that just brought me together with 6 women that I've been texting with and riding with for 2.5 years. And we just met in Nashville. And let me tell you, I had a little anxiety about hanging out with 6 women because I'm not good with the women group. Drama is not one of my things. We had the best time. Some of them are on here listening to us. And I think we are all devastated that we had to leave. But I have to say, like, COVID, as much as it's been such a nightmare, it has brought me so many great groups of people. And like our group that we met, I mean, we haven't met in person, we've met on Zoom. You and I are like buds. Marcus is as great as ever. But I think it lets you find your authentic self. And that's what I needed to get back to, because I started getting annoyed with people, which is not an Amy thing. And I was tired. But like you learn in that the Miracle Morning, you're not really tired. You know, maybe you're anxious, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're procrastinating things that you need to do for yourself. But I got away twice, like back to back, which is like, I don't do that. I heard my husband telling somebody that, oh my God, Amy is so, like, she loves being in the RV. Like, she's so comfortable and she's having the greatest time. Whoever knew I'd have an RV?
She's more like a Hyatt Regency person than an RV.
I'm like the Four Seasons. Like, I'm excited to go to Boulder to visit my son so I can stay at like the most expensive hotel there. I don't know where I got that, but you know, it's your authentic self. Like, I don't let down my guard that often, but we joked about it yesterday with Lauren Parsons. She is a doll, like the greatest person ever. I'm so glad my mom and dad got to meet her. She lives in Steamboat Springs, where my brother and sister-in-law and Eli live. And I happened to reach out to her on this Facebook chat with Peloton right when I started. And I got the bike. I wasn't going to ride with anybody. I was just going to ride with myself. And she ends up in our little Jingle Bellas group, even though she wasn't in our challenge.
Jingle
Jingle
Bellas.
But it's like, I just decided, like, I saw in a chat that she was from Steamboat Springs, and I'm like, okay, there are 12 people that live there. She has to know my brother and sister-in-law. But that's not like me to do that. Like, I don't, like, I'm 55. I don't need any more friends. But I have to say,
don't tell people how old you are. They'll know how old I am.
well, you had me when you were in college, remember?
Oh my God.
You could have been 18. But I don't know. It is, you know, I think like the Miracle Morning, it makes you, the thing that I learned the most is it makes me a better listener. It made me realize that you need to be your authentic self to be able to really be a good teacher. And really, if you don't believe in it, you're not going to be able to get somebody to believe in it.
Sure.
So I think that when we were talking the last day, it was like you heard stuff differently, or you quieted down.
The noise.
Like things around you quieted down, even in your head, to make you focus better.
You're at a different level of consciousness. Having done it with our group, I decided that I'm going to do it with my Temple students. So in November, even though they're in the semester, I'm going to get a group of my students together from November to December to do the Miracle Morning. And I challenged them who's up for it. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of up for it, Chip or Amy's question in the chat room, it says, are we now in a seller's or buyer's market? Is it better now to sell my home or buy a home? I may have to enter both of these situations soon. So again, the crux of the question, sellers, buyer's market, your thoughts and your recommendations.
Let me take a second out, because I just saw Marcus Allen say, love you guys on the chat. I'll tell you, Marcus Allen is one of the most impactful people for my daughter, following his impact on me. But he's a remarkable guy. I was on the board of a charitable group in West Philadelphia. West Philadelphia is a place that my people came from Ireland. That's, you know, in the 1800s. That's West Philly.
That's where I was born and raised.
Yeah, see, almost everybody in my family came from Ireland, and they all for several generations were there. So a lot of my older relatives when I was growing up were there. But it's become a place of difficulty for a lot of people. So this group would take people off the street, out of a shelter, women with children, and put them right in a house, in a row house in West Philly, and manage the social services around them with a heavy hand and a report card. So I was drawn to this place because the kind of the report card, the structure that they put on people, and Marcus became the new executive director there. I had gotten ticked off because the board had gotten out of control and had kind of wrecked the previous executive director's career. And I don't like being on board. I love being on boards that can fix things and make things better. And I've done a lot of that in my exploration years, as they call elders now. And but Marcus gets the job, and I had quit the board in kind of a huff and written a letter about it to the chairman. And he calls me and he says, I noticed I'm the new executive director. And I said, yeah, but what are you calling me for? I kind of quit. He says, that's what I want to know. What were you upset about? Somebody told me you were really good here for a long time and then you left in a huff. So he reached out. I mean, that's really a weird thing to do for a new executive director. So I knew this guy had some guts. And then we met a couple of times and we got to know each other. And I started to feel the nature of him and the trek across the United States to raise money for Big Brothers. When he got the job at Big Brothers, he reached out again because Nancy Roach was the award winner of the year some years back in the 90s. Won the award as the top volunteer there. So, and my mother had been on an advisory group there. So Big Brothers and the Roach family go way back. So wow. To have my daughter hook up with you guys at 5 a.m. with Marcus in the lead is just a joy for me because he's one of my favorites. So thank you, Marcus.
Since I know Marcus is on now, he was hitting them long and far yesterday. We were out there 18 holes.
That's good. Well, he's hitting them far for Big Brothers, Big Sisters in a big way, and it's a joy to see. But there was a question on this.
Yeah, buyer's market, seller's market. Where are we? Advice, recommendations.
It's always best to do the hardest thing first. You know, it's sort of like most of the time the market is not as hot as it's been. So, you know, you really need to get your money out of that present house and go do the other thing. So selling is usually the hardest part of it. So normal market wise, selling first is the best thing to do. Then you've got the money, you can take it to the next step. Right now, you know, and Amy knows this better than I. I'm a casual observer. She's intimately involved, but you know, finding a place is really, really a big deal. And there are ways to get the money out of your present house over to that new house, but you've got to go after that first. So Amy's got a better, more up-to-date answer than I on that one.
You're
all
still
right, royalty, fifth generation.
You're still seller's market because there isn't any inventory, but you will notice people don't put sold signs up. They still keep their sale sign on so they can get calls, but you'll notice things dropping in price and stuff like that. You just need to be really careful. Listen to your real estate agent who's trying to help you with the pricing. When you need to find the backstory on why the house in your market sold for $25,000 over asking price. Sometimes it's not even a multiple offer situation. It's the fact that somebody is so desperate to get in. And like we saw a lot of this when we were running into like almost school starting. People being so desperate, losing out on things. And they're like, we need this house. It doesn't even look exactly like we want it to, but we need it. So there's a lot of backstory on the sales prices. And, you know, you do have to be very careful. It's almost like list not what they just sold for, but like what they were listed for before they sold. And people are like, well, we're going to leave money on the table. But you need to assess like what you have in your house compared to that house. So I do think that, you know, it's still a seller's market as long as you price right. You're always going to have people just throwing their house on to see if they get the price. But Compass has this Compass concierge. Well, they'll front you a certain amount of money as long as it's figured on your equity in your house, they'll front you the money for no cost so that you can get stuff done so that you can make it look as great as possible. But like Chip was saying, the hard part is, what if you can't find a house? And that's sort of where it stops people. And they're like, okay, well, so we can sell our house. Well, then what do we do? Because the other thing is rentals. It's not easy to find a rental. And if you have an animal, it really isn't easy to find a rental.
An animal the size of your animal.
Yeah,
Certainly.
exactly. Vince doesn't help. But I do think you need to find somebody that can counsel you through that. And, if you can buy before you sell, or you can sell and then have, maybe decide you're going to go into a rental before you find something. So it has been a little difficult that way. There's a lot more thinking involved, but we're still really low on inventory, and it's sort of all price ranges. It's my friend Rob Howard. I always say he's like the king of Drexel Hill. The stuff goes like flying off the market. Drexel Hill, Havertown, but it's still, you have to be priced right. And when you see something come on between 800 and 2 million on the main line, people are like, what do you mean that's going so fast? Well, some of these people have been wanting to move for years. I have clients that lost out in 2005 when the market was crazy and stayed in their house too long. And now they want to move again. But, you're going to be, selling high, but you're going to be, buying high too. So you just sort of have to figure it out.
Great job. Time is getting away. Chip, question for you. I'm going to show you a cover of a book. Amy already mentioned it.
Right.
I want you to tell us what the book means to you and what you're doing as a result of the book with your brunches during the holiday time.
It's fun. I'm out in Vancouver, Washington, visiting Nancy. My wife's one of 7. The oldest sister is turning 80 this month. And she's reluctant to come east. Almost all of us live in Philadelphia. So all 6 siblings came. This is the clock tower at the outside the hotel. But we're trying to decide right now because of COVID, whether to do this luncheon again. But we have for years given money to all the brothers and sisters' kids for Christmas. They were not really very good at responding with thank you notes and that kind of thing. So we got this book probably 9 years ago. And I think Marcus Allen may have had something to do with
the Go-Giver.
Finding this book. And Dr. Jim, the author real well, I understand, but it's a small, easy to read story, like Jesus told parables. It's like easy to remember parables. And it was just one of those recognitions that giving back was something that we did, but we needed to get more purposeful about it. So the first time we got the family together at Christmas time, this is like, it's 3 generations or 4 generations, starting with 3 ladies who unfortunately all died this year, none of COVID, but they were 95 years old. And then it goes down to somebody's always pregnant in the room. So we got the family together and handed out the book, The Go-Giver, and said, this is something that we really think you ought to look at, read with your family or whatever. The next year, to do something more purposeful, we gave people money. See that? $50 bills, baby. And it still gives me a thrill to hold that sucker. We would mail them to the families and say, look, you've got 3 little kids. Tell them that this is $450 bills. Show them the money and tell them they've got to give it to somebody, and then come back at Sunday before Christmas to a luncheon and tell us what they did. And this has been such a joy for us because the whole family gets together. Sure. And the kids get along a little microphone now, and they tell the story. There'll be a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 16-year-old. And the money goes to wherever they kind of that little group decided it should go. A couple times we've gotten 3 or 4 of the families have gotten together and gone to the Walmart and bought all these toys for kids and food for people, and the stories just roll. And one example of what happens is the one of the parents called. So she's in her 30s and she's got 2 little kids, and she said Grant was going to have his birthday party and we're going to bring the kids over Saturday, and he said to us, look, if you'll give me these 2 things that I really want, forget the rest of the birthday presents.
Sure.
And tell my friends that they have to bring a toy over that we're going to give away. And she said, I didn't teach him that. That's something that comes out of the Go-Giver Luncheon is the name of this event. So it's
Count me in the next time you do it. And I might switch occupations. I know I'm a speaker and everything, but I don't carry $50 bills in my pocket. So Chip, I don't know. I may be switching roles here.
Well, maybe we need a keynote for the luncheon.
Done. Consider it done. Consider it done. I'm gonna squeeze this one question in before we close with our 2 motivational keynote presentations that you guys will be making. It says, being married to a real estate agent, how does a spouse best support being married to that person? Needs some advice on this. Being married to a real estate, so I guess Nancy could help with this, or Brock could help with this, but being married to a real estate agent, how does a spouse best support being married to this person? See if you can do it in 1 minute or less. I see Amy smiling. Look at both of them with their hands on the
Patience,
Patience
and being a good cook.
Flexibility.
I heard the P word, patience, and the F word, flexibility. I love it. Thank you for that answer. Time is getting away at this juncture in the show. At this juncture, we like to do our mini, M-I-N-I, our mini keynotes, our motivational keynotes. They're 30 seconds long, and I'm going to ask each one of you, with Amy going first, to give us 30 seconds call to action. It could be on real estate. It could be encouragement, self-care, whatever message you want to leave with our audiences. And of course, I'm going to ask you to share because I'm a speaker. So mic check, mic check. Amy, I'm going to ask you to lean in, look right to that camera, get real close, and give us your 30-second motivational keynote.
So the Go-Giver is my thing this month. And I do think reading it, but sharing it is the biggest part. And that was Marcus's thing. Like, not only read it, buy 10, copies and hand it out. And I still am not good at receiving. Like, that's one of the last parts. But I think, especially with the pandemic, everything that's been going on, pay it forward. Like the other day, Lauren and I were at a coffee shop and the girl's credit card didn't go through and the person behind the cash register looked like he was just going to die. And I'm like, we'll pay for it. And he's like, well, no. And I was like, yes, we will pay for it. And he was just like, the smile on his face. We turned around and told everybody, like, pay it forward, like, just do it. But that's just something I do. Like, I don't think about it, but that's how I was brought up. Like, it's always, the extra tip, like when the pandemic and you're going and taking, getting takeout, tip them. They're not making the money they used to. But I think that's the big thing. Like, you need to, it's the simple things. It's not the big deal. It's just like the simple, like in your line at Starbucks, buy the person behind you their coffee.
Pay it forward.
Even if they look a little angry.
Pay it forward, guys. Pay it forward. Chip, your thoughts, your motivational keynote starts now.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jim, for hosting the show each week. Thank you for inviting me on with my daughter. That's a rare treat. But I think my training and my experience with a long career in the real estate business, and now what they call the exploration time of life, being an elder, is to learn to envision things in your mind that you want to happen, to make that a colorful, passionate thought, and you'll find that things come true for you. It's a learning that your subconscious mind is the most powerful thing in the world. And I've had that happen over and over and over again. And as I walk through this exploration time, I'm still learning, and you see things happening, some of the things that you've talked about on your show before, and you learned today. You believe that you've made things come true that you've envisioned. So keep the visions tuned up passionately and color.
Wow, what a surprise, what a blessing having the Roach family on our show. Transformational, informational. So thank you for joining us, and for you. Once again, I told you, another good show. Thank you for joining us. Next week, please bring a friend or friends, plural. And don't forget, you've just been Gym-Pacted. See you later.